So welcome everyone to the African AI and Equality Toolbox webinar series. This is our first of 6 webinars demonstrating human rights-centered AI development across African contexts. Each webinar pairs one AI lifecycle stage with real African case studies, where the case studies are including the Code for Africa, Makerere Health Lab, Mozilla, and others. And the stages are actually as listed here. That is, stage 1 is objective and teams. Stage 2 is system requirements. Stage 3 is data discovery. Stage 4 is model selection, model interpretation, and then deployment. So today, we shall be looking at stage 1, which is objective and team composition. We shall be doing this with 2 agriculture projects, one done in Uganda and the other in Nigeria. What is the purpose for this series? You can count for. One is that the series enables moving from importing global North AI models to developing African-led approaches. Number 2, the series of spotlights communities being at the center of innovation, and the communities not just being recipients of technology. Number 3 is this series offers practical tools for policymakers, technologists, civil society, communities. And then lastly, the series offers evidence that human rights-based AI isn't just ethical, but is actually more effective even at scaling. So stage 1, like I said, is about objective and team composition. And what really matters most about stage 1 is that it is a foundation that determines everything that follows. Most AI harms we know starts with who is not in the room or at the table when decisions are made. So the objectives that are set by developers versus those set by communities actually create extremely different systems. And we would want to move towards objectives that are created by communities. So the following are some of the very big issues around stage 1. Number 1 is the purpose and context of this particular AI solution. Who defines the problem? Are developers assuming the problem, or are these problems identified or co-identified with communities? Number 2, what is the historical context? Are there power imbalances or past harms in this particular space that would make, for instance, users be wary and would create precedences that are risky or dangerous? Number 3 is about stakeholder mapping. Who will be affected? Who's missing from the table, or the decision-making table? Let me talk something about team composition. Team composition, if done right, that is the team that will be developing the AI system, starting from problem definition to data collection, etc., needs to include intentional representation of marginalized communities. So systems that are developed by teams that include marginalized communities certainly are more responsive to the same communities, even during application. Another issue about team composition is the decision-making power. Is there consultation? Is it adequate? Or is there, genuine agency in shaping objectives? Another important consideration under team composition is expertise recognition. That is technical knowledge plus the lived experience as equal contributors. One other consideration is safe spaces. How do we ensure that all the voices are heard authentically? So you see, when we are dealing with marginalized communities, sometimes there would be, there would be barriers of language. You may have user communities that are monolingual, but are you included in that conversation? Are vernaculars being used so that you can be more inclusive and then assume rightly that what is coming out of them is authentic? Then, under the same objective one, is the objective setting. Is it community-driven or is it imposed? Then participatory processes, that is tools for authentic engagement right from project inception. Power dynamics, how do gender, age, disability, economic status affect who gets heard? Are we opening up this, space to all these people? And then success metrics, how do we measure both technical performance and community empowerment? So in this particular stage one, some of the red flags that you want to watch, that is the risk areas, are things like, do teams look alike? Members of the team, how alike are they? How different are they? You want to be wary of instances where team members actually think alike, because then there might be little diversity. Another point, red flag, which you need to watch is objectives set before talking to affected communities. Don't make assumptions about problems to be solved. Consultation that happen after key decisions.
I think the internets of Prof has dropped out or dropped. And he was trying to set the scene of stage one. But what is really exciting, and that we'll hear definitely more about once he joins back. So in the meantime, maybe we could do a quicker deep dive with some of the speakers that we have with us today, Prof. Daisy Salifu and Prof. Joel Nwakaire, who have introduced and who have brought in case studies that are part of the webinar and that are also part of the African AI and Equality Toolbox. And so perhaps to move right in, I would really love to start with you, Daisy, just in terms of telling us about the story and about how did bringing together the project that you worked on came about.
Thank you, Amina. We are looking at the case of AI tool that was developed in Uganda. And this was an AI tool that was developed for disease detection in cassava. So it was developed for the cassava farmers. And so this tool, we came into this space when it was ready for scaling. And so the innovators, they had plans to scale this, and they expected the farmers to embrace that one, and then it should just scale and be able to help farmers detect diseases early so that the disease can be controlled before they destroy the crop. Now, in this case, we had some dialogue with the farmers. And so the farmers, especially the women farmers, who I had dialogue with, we had a whole group of farmers, a good number of them, who we separated into two groups, men on their own and women on their own, recognizing that women may not speak if they are combined with men, so we needed to provide the safe space. So we had the community dialogue, trying to have these farmers speak up the needs or the challenges they have in cassava production. So we looked at the entire process, starting from the seed, the planting, and the whole process of producing cassava. And for each stage, we had to ask them, what is the challenge which you think artificial intelligence would solve? So we had so much of the stories of land preparation, the seed and the harvesting, how they struggle with even the storage and everything, the marketing. And finally, we sat down and say, now, which is the most important, the priority problem that you'd like AI to solve? You can think of this dialogue as sort of retrospective because this AI tool was already developed, but we put aside the innovators and we went into the dialogue, just try to check what are these farmers thinking about the AI tool that was developed. And so in our analysis with the farmers, we sat together under a tree and they told us that what they feel is the priority need is the soil nutrient analysis. Why? In their talking, these women, they said, we are not sure of the soils that we are using for growing cassava. What we wish is to grow cassava in the best soils so that we can maximize the harvest. At the same time, we would like to know the existence of pathogens in the soils we are using. Because many of the times you plant your cassava, the diseases will show up later, while you never expected that the cassava was infested. And many times the source is the soil. Much as the stems, the cuttings themselves could also have a problem, but at least they get that seed being assured that it doesn't have a problem. And so they iterated to say there are many problems, their priority need is soil nutrient analysis and analysis of soil pathogens. And now, given that we have in our hands the AI tool that is for disease detection, it doesn't mean that it's a bad tool, but it's just a second need. It's not a priority need. And so we noted that misalignment there. That much as we have an AI tool that is to detect diseases in cassava, indeed, there is need to detect diseases. But was that the priority need for the farmers? These women told us that that was not the priority need. Not to say the tool is useless, but if the priority need has been missed, there is misalignment of priorities here, then the problem starts from there. Because we would like to be solving the priority need of the farmer and not the secondary need. And so that misalignment is one of the things that innovators have to guard against. Because if there is sustainable adoption or scaling of a given AI tool, and it doesn't seem to speak to the needs of the farmers or their priority need, then the adoption might not be sustainable. You can have a tool that is 87% accurate, in diagnosing the disease in cassava. But if it doesn't speak to the real need of the farmer, then there is no sustainable adoption of such a tool. Scaling might become a problem because the tool will be there and people will not use it. The farmers, the users will not use it because they don't find it so useful to speak to their priority need. So indeed, that was something that we learned a lesson. And this is very important for innovators, that let's avoid misalignment of priorities. Yeah. Our priorities as innovators may not be the same priority as the farmer or as the user. And there we have to pay attention.
Yes, thank you so much. And actually, I'm really curious about the community dialogues that allowed you to reach this conclusion and to be able to align and to clarify what the priorities were. Could you please walk us through these community dialogues? Who showed up And how did you handle power dynamics, especially because you mentioned a lot of the women were invisibilized, were not part of the table of the discussions?
Thank you so much. Yes, in this community dialogue, we had about 24 farmers. So it was a combination of women and male farmers. So there were 15 women and 9 men. The men were quite elderly because we knew we need to include such because they are marginalized. We had also those with disabilities, the men. And so in the women group, there were 15 people there, and we had the women that were elderly and the young ones also, they were there. We had to separate them. If you don't separate women from men, women will hide their voice, will not speak out, will hide under the table. They need that safe space. So recognizing that, we decided to divide them in 2 groups. This one in the community, know that we are out of our hotels, we get out of the town and we are meeting them where they are. So this was in the community. We just chose some central place where there was some building. I think they use it for some meetings, but we sat under a tree. I had a group of women under a tree, and I was facilitating the discussion, the dialogue that we had. We needed to have a rapporteur. Now, it was very interesting to see women in Uganda, in this part of Uganda, Tororo. All of them speak English because they have no choice. Uganda doesn't have a common language the way we have common languages in Africa. Malawi has Chichewa, Kenya has Swahili, Zimbabwe has Shona, and so forth. And so because they don't have such type of a language that unifies them, then English was the language that we used. Though a few did not understand, but because we had those that know and those that don't understand, they were able to clarify to each other. So we sat in separate spaces. I was facilitating that together with my colleague, a woman. We knew if we bring in a man, these women may not be free. And so the other discussion was also handled by a man and handling the men, the elderly, and the people with disabilities. And so we sat down and we had our flip chart, and I noted that there was, at least in every group, you get those that are in the forefront. Actually, the rapporteur that I thought would come was coming from my side. We ended up having one of the women taking down notes on a flip chart. That was so brilliant because it made everybody so free. And so these women, they spoke so freely, knowing that nobody was hearing them anyway. Once you mix them with men, it's a different case altogether. So you need to create that safe space for the women. Otherwise, the embedded cultural thinking in them, they cannot speak up in the presence of men. And so create that safe space so that they can speak their voice, they can speak their lived experience, so that that becomes part of the input in the design of the innovation that we would like to develop. So indeed, that created safe space, and they spoke, and they were so happy. And of course, we noted that a few of them might not have been very conversant with the smartphone, but that was handled in another level, so that each one of them was at the same level, understanding how a smartphone would be used to take the images of the cassava leaves so that they're able to detect the disease. And so the safe space and facilitating the women dialogue using a woman, and for the men using a man, that was something that I think we really tried to handle the power dynamics that exist between men and women.
Thank you so much. That was a great breakdown, and I think you've really demonstrated what it means when you actually listen to farmers and actually be intentional about building that space that allows the comfort, and that also allows kind of concrete actions to emerge. And also, like, how do you intentionally set the scene, and how do you intentionally set the scene to listen, and how do you listen differently? I'd really like to transition to Prof. Jewel Nwakaire and to hear your perspectives from the Black Pepper Project in Nigeria, and how did this apply, and what lessons came out from perhaps misalignment, and how does this conversation apply to the project in general?
Yeah, thank you, Amina. The truth is that as the discussion progressed, I was so happy that the project that brought this initiative, want to thank IDRC and other partners that have made sure that we went through this process, because there were a lot of lessons. So unlike the Ugandan case where we had an already existing innovation, the Nigeria Yellow Pepper Project was a project that was born out of need. So it was a brand new project that started with people that were the end users. And the storyline is that yellow pepper, it's called yellow pepper. It's a unique pepper with a unique aroma in the southeast Nigeria, especially with a particular community or a clan in Enugu State, Nigeria. They had this pepper unique. Over the years, they have planted it. So this, again, to show that women are dominant in agricultural setting, you could see that 90% of the yellow pepper farmers were women. And so there is no intervention that will exclude them. So we have also noticed that when technology comes, women are excluded and men take it up because maybe it provides more access to finance. And so one word you used that drove the intervention was being intentional about our approach. And so the stakeholder engagement was planned to, first of all, understand through a participatory approach, to understand the needs of these farmers, and then to design a technology that could meet their needs. So in a stakeholder dialogue, similar to what we had in Uganda, these women were interviewed, and again, the principle of safe space. But the safe space was such that they could see one another. Husbands could see their wives, not that you took them to a new location, so that you still maintain trust. And so that transparency made everybody to be relaxed because we understood the cultural norms and practices. So it was held out again in the village square. And so you had to interpret terms in the way the people could understand. I must mention that it was something like storytelling approach. Tell us your story of your farming practices. What has been some unique challenges? What has been your high points? What has been your low points? And then through a structured questionnaire, as it were, through discussions, but they didn't know it was a question survey, but it was a discussion that was going on to understand from the women what were their challenges. And through a participatory approach of raising your hand, so the women were talked to and said, okay, how many of you said that this is a problem, that disease infestation is top on your priority? You see, they raise their hands and you count the numbers. And you find that the numbers show, oh, out of 15 in attendance, 9 says disease. And then you find out that another set says water management. Another set says access to market. Now, the question is, the technology should meet that need. So now you have disease detection, but what type of disease detection? That is another problem they had to face. We explained to them about how technology can be used in tracking diseases. But these women said they were very knowledgeable. They could see the disease, they could identify it, but they don't know when it attacks. So it is not now a matter of using your phones to scan or to check. They say they see it, but they don't know when it comes. So the technology was co-designed with them to be in the farm and send SMS to them when it detects it. So they may not be in the farm, but the AI is the third eye in the farm when they are not there to see actually what happens in the farm. So instead of using the mobile devices to scan, they had to build a standalone system that could, see right from the farm and using, because it was working on a Raspberry Pi, which is a standalone computing device, and then integrated with a SIM model. Once it classifies and sees, this class is unhealthy, it sends an SMS message to the farmer in that community. 10 of them at once receiving an SMS and said, oh, your farm is infested, please check. So if they had gone to market, they are activated to go to the farm to make sure they check, and the location is shown. So that was a co-created solution. Because we heard their story and they told us that they were very knowledgeable, that they wanted something to assist them to see their farm when they are not there. And they also mentioned that because of poor network data availability, most of them do not have those sophisticated phones. So the discussion helped to understand the gap in technology adoption. When you build the technology, the people have to use it. So you now consider what are available resources for them to use it. And so the SMS-based integration will be the best for them. So then the team made sure that they listened to the other priority problems too. And when they listened to them, they said, oh, we also have irrigation issue. So now they had to talk with the team to use an IoT that also, from the comfort of their homes, they can activate irrigation. They can monitor soil moisture content. They can also monitor soil nutrients so that they can, they know when to intervene before it goes to a point where the plants have started, going under stress. So it made their farms smart. The team also went further to find a way to link them to market. They developed an application that can link one to the market and also provide an e-extension service. So when they have disease infestation, they don't know what to do. They have voluntary people that voluntarily are online or can WhatsApp or send SMS to them. And when they chat with them and say, oh, I have this disease, it's okay, you can apply this chemical or you use this process. The truth is that because of that engagement, the farmers were so elated and happy that the team in Nigeria has been reaping with the farmers. Last experience we had, they packaged the whole bag of pepper and sent to the team that implemented the project, which is they were so happy that their yield is increasing. So in an interview, they said, oh, after your intervention and your assistance, even the psychological effect is that they are encouraged to go to the farm. And then they are willing to use the technology. So willingness to use the technology increased. And that is why the team currently is also implementing another level of scaling with them. Because of the discussion, the unique discussion that ensued, the team saw the need to organize these women so that they could access finance. And through the project, they organized them to have a women cooperative group. It was not existing at the time the project came. And now the women cooperative group is now accessing fertilizer from the government because they are now a group. So what we're looking at is what we learned is a holistic approach, not a single targeted approach. So when you are even bringing technology, you are looking at other incentives, other things you can do to encourage participation, to encourage adoption. But the secret was that community dialogue, listening to their stories, listening to their lived experience, recognizing their intelligence, and that local knowledge or indigenous knowledge is key to producing technology that is adaptable to people.
Thank you so much for that. And it links really perfectly to also what Prof. Winston was saying earlier, and sadly he's had a power outage, so he's not able to join for the rest of the conversation. But he did pinpoint to interesting kind of broader ideas that process indeed matters as much as product, and the cassava project in Uganda and the pepper case study in Nigeria point to that as well. And for me, it does seem like perhaps it wasn't so much about scale, but you're demonstrating a lot of expansion in the potentialities of what happened after people trusted the developers of the project. And I guess I want you to take us back to really the beginning, and this is the question for both you and Daisy. If you were to really rewind to day one, what would you tell the original team to do differently? How to avoid the misalignment before even getting to misalignment? And yeah, what are things that you think could have been avoided from the beginning?
Thank you, Amina. It's important that innovators start with the farmers' priority setting. You know, you need to sit in a round table with the farmers. If innovators or AI practitioners or experts find that to be a bit challenging, then we need to involve gender experts, you know, the social scientists, because they are used to understand the psychology, they are used to interacting with the communities. And so such type of experts should be part of the intergroup of the team, so that we can sit in some round table and have a conversation and identify the problems the farmers or the users have, or the society or the community is facing, so that we develop the AI tool from that angle and not from our thinking, assuming this is the problem. All innovators need to acknowledge that any innovation you put in place has the potential to exclude some population. And that is just, that's it. The other day I was thinking about how PlayStation is played. You know, the PlayStation with children, it has a pad, you have a pad and it has two knobs. I mean, you need two hands. If you don't have hands, you are not part of that. If you have one hand, you are not part of that. You need to have eyes open, because the screen is going to be playing out with something. And if you don't see what is happening on the screen, then you don't know what to do with the knobs, the remote control. So you see already, it has discriminated against a certain portion of the population. And so all innovations have the potential to do that. And so it takes deliberate action to include those that are marginalized. And to make matters worse, especially in agriculture and food systems, where women and young people, they are so marginalized for so many reasons. There is need for deliberate action. Sit in a round table, sit in a community dialogue. Gender experts, social scientists can help in trying to have such type of conversation. Acknowledge or identify a need, a real need, a priority need the community is facing, and let's develop our innovation from that angle. Then you find with that, the community feels they are heard, you know, they are listened to, and then their perspectives are then incorporated into the design. They feel part of the process, and that is key. For any innovation to scale, for its wider use, you need the users to embrace it. And unless you do this, make them be part of the process, co-development, co-create with them, co-thinking with them, and incorporate their views. Adoption of such a tool might be a challenge. And really, nobody wants to have an innovation that sits somewhere without use, just because the users don't feel they're part of the process. They don't feel they have been part of it. And especially marginalized people are so unforgiving that once you leave them behind, you have left them for good. they don't forgive anyone. So it's important that we have that dialogue, identify the problems together with them, not for them. Don't identify the problem for them, but with them. Sit in the round table. Then from there, move forth, design and do this and do that together. And then you find that is a more sustainable way of handling our AI innovations.
Thank you so much for that. Prof. Nwakaire, what do you think?
I 100% agree with Daisy. It was a process we went through together. The idea of what I call collaboration should drive AI development, any tool development. Collaboration with even those we think, in quote, we think are not literate. Sometimes that is where, or somehow I have seen it, that is where innovation is born. If we go back to the roots and bring ourselves down, that's what I preach across Africa. Researchers should be humble enough to recognize that the people, the communities, the users, the producers of food, the health practitioners are the secret to having an inclusive innovation. And so there is the key there is partnership for progress. Partner, as a researcher, I need to partner with civil society actors who have been in the field. So as an AI developer, I need to work with NGOs. I need to understand the dynamics, not just producing the tools, but producing tools that touch lives. So hearing the stories of those in the field is important in defining that problem. And just as Winston said, if the foundational definition is wrong, the adoption is also wrong. You could see that at the end of the day, the story will hear that AI came to Africa but did not make an impact because the foundations were not involved. So we need to talk to the people. We need to listen to them. It is not our idea, it should be their idea. And then we use science and the act we have, the theories, to produce solutions that meet their needs. That is my submission.
And sometimes people say that community engagement is too slow, and I'm really curious about how you respond to that.
Okay.
No, go on. Go on, Joy.
No, go first. Go first. You wanted to speak.
All right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you have to wait for the community dialogue, yes, it's slow. But what does it benefit an innovator developing an AI tool that nobody uses? Then better slow down. But in the end, I mean, you are able to scale that innovation because it is well embraced. So it's better to have that slowness at the beginning, upfront, but knowing that later on, the scaling will not be a challenge. So to me, that is something that I really would challenge innovators. Let's take it. It delays you taking off, but it's worth it. It's worth that. If we are to have wide adoption of the AI tool that we are developing. Yeah, that's my take.
Sorry, Joel, you're
So
muted.
for me, I align with Daisy. You see, one thing that I want to share with you that happens is when sometimes these discussions are within the circle of, let's say, the marginalized gender, women. But you see, when I've seen the experience, when I talk about this in a larger community, coming from my end, with my lived experience, coming from research, and now going into implementation of some projects, I found that it seems slow for those who wants to publish papers, especially for researchers. It seems slow because researchers, the track record is to have your papers in impact factor journals and not much of local impact. So in Africa, you may have professor of AI with no community member using any tool. The local impacts are not there. And so for the professor, it seems slow to engage the communities to shape what to. But if we want to lift people from poverty, if we want to reduce the inequality that we are afraid to see that may be caused by the use of AI, we need to be intentional about these engagements. Otherwise, that divide will continue to exist. And we want people to start looking at people not from their academic backgrounds, but from their lived experiences. What do they contribute to life? These farmers have been in the field under the sun, under the rain, they monitor the soil. It's a total different thing, writing a research on it. So it may seem slow, but that is the path to impact. That is the true path to impact on the African setting, because Africa has its unique way. You could see communal life, and when we start deviating from it, you start seeing individual life and increasing poverty. So I agree and I believe that the best way is funders, those who fund AI development, those who are into AI development should change their steps. We should go back to the roots, talk to the people so that the tools will impact the lives of our people. So we must collaborate, co-create, and design by inclusion.
Thank you so much for that. I think you covered so many of the questions that I was really, really eager to ask. And one of them is specifically the gender question, because as both you and both Prof. Salifu have pointed out, is that women are the ones who are in the fields. They are the ones who are doing most of the farming, but they don't get much say in tech. And so if perhaps before we move into the takeaways of what people can learn from your methodologies and from this community involvement, I'm really keen to hear you kind of elaborate further on how did you convince the women to kind of believe that, you know, they have a say in the technology that will get to impact the work that they do on a daily basis in the farms.
Thank you. I mean, for the case of Uganda, you know, these are women who were given the smartphones. The app for the tool is installed on the smartphone, ready for use, where they have to go to the field, take an image of a leaf, and it will be able to tell you which disease, you know, is attacking your crop. Now, one of the things that women are really disadvantaged, the smartphone is there, but do they know how to use it properly? And so that facilitated, that gave us the idea of having training to understand how this smartphone works, how it operates, and even how the app works. And that required us to do the training with these women. But what are you going to train them on? We had to co-develop even the modules for the training. You ask them, what do you want to understand out of this gadget? Otherwise, you don't see it and then design the training modules or the training materials. You need to understand what is it that they really want to do. Some of them did not even know what login means. And some of them, so there was all variety. And we had to capture such ideas, such thinking, such into the training, the module. So there is need for co-development of the training so that you are training them on the real needs in their life. Some of the things would find like they're petty or they're too simple, but that's what they need. And so you need to train them on that. So training the marginalized, knowing their background and knowing where they're coming from, there is need for that training. We cannot take it just to say, now we have produced this one, smartphone is here, and go ahead and start using it. And that will not do the job. Otherwise, there is need for training. And that is exactly what we did, was to pull these women to a certain level where they're able to use the smartphone. They're able to see, this is the app that is going to do the diagnosis. So they see it on the phone. And because of user rights, you're able to log in and so forth. And so training becomes key. So in this era of digital, training for the gadget itself, training for the tool itself, it's all key for the women so that they can be at a certain level where they're able to interact with the AI tool that has been put in place. So training together.
And so just to also add a little to what Daisy said, building trust is not an easy thing. And one of the key entrance points in getting these women to the table, if we had gone just as researchers, it would have been difficult. We had to leverage on those who have been working with them, the civil society actors. So that partnership was what aided our first entry into the community to sit down to talk. And the expression from them showed that they lacked the trust on us, because they said that people come here, ask them questions and go, and they don't see anything. So we had to start building the trust before even going into the discussion. So we need to intentionally build the trust by assuring that we're here to assist, and also helping them to know that we're here to learn from them. Because it has been a pattern of, we want to teach you, we want to teach you. But you are now here to learn. Oh, you are here to learn? A professor is here to learn from me? Yes, we recognize that you are the field, you are the warfront, and you have the experience. Acknowledging them as leading in even the research. And so they start saying, oh, you now recognize us, we want to talk to you. That is how we started. So we made them to understand and have confidence in themselves that they are the future we're looking for. Because if I don't eat today, it means the farmer has not produced. And so helping them to see that they are key to the success of each of us in the society made them to feel very important and involved. So that confidence building and trust building was the initial step. And not just jumping into the technology that we are here to discuss with you about technology. No. We say we are sorry if we have not involved you all these years in what we're doing. We have erred, we have come back to build strong synergy. And over time, they are the ones now preaching the message to others that if these researchers come now, that they have repented, they are ready to work with us. So, and once you build trust on 10 farmers, the multiplicative effect is that you have built trust on 100 farmers. That's what happens. Because farmers talk a lot. If there is something you did that is very good, they whisper to the next farmer. You don't need to spend much time. So the same thing in technology adoption. If we integrate them and develop those tools, they are the ones to advertise the technology to others, and not even you. You see them talk to others, come and use these tools. It's working. We have seen increase. So that is what works.
These are really amazing lessons. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think, yeah, they apply beyond agriculture, to other sectors. And I guess what you're amplifying and what you're saying loud and clear is that AI development is about community building, not just technology deployment. We're getting really close to the hour, and I have a final question for the both of you, which has to do with scale, which is one of the favorite words in the AI world. And so how do you scale these projects that you guys have worked on without losing what makes it special? And from that, I guess, what do you think we should take away, and what should AI teams take away from your approaches and your methodologies?
Thank you, Amina. I go first. I have taught myself AI is here to stay. It is how we are going to handle it so that it benefits everyone. So design by inclusion is key. Now, come to scaling. you are scaling the process and not just scaling the product. If you scale the product, then it's not going to be sustainable. You need to scale the entire process, just the way you have designed it, together with the user community. The scaling should take the same form. It is scaling the process itself and not scaling it on them, scaling it with them. And that is the only way we can sustain the AI innovations that are coming into our lives. We can't wish away AI, but we can do it better. Design by inclusion, scale the process, scale with them and not on them, so that that becomes, sustainable, and the adoption becomes something that is so easy. And users will definitely embrace and work with this innovation throughout, the entire, use of this such innovation. So design by inclusion is key. Scale the process and not scale the tool alone. Back to maybe Joel, we have something to add.
Perfect. What you said is perfect. It resonates with me, and it resonates across Africa. Scale the process. Even when you're scaling the tool, make sure that the tool you're scaling is still the voices of the people out there, that they told you what to scale. That is it. They may tell you this is how to scale it. So the scaling process. In fact, when I read the the playbook, scaling playbook by IDRC, I said I will rewrite the playbook to African playbook, scaling playbook, because there are processes and practices that we cannot, jump. The people are always, I notice that our people are always afraid of technology when it comes. And why they are afraid is because their voices were not captured. So design by inclusion. And when you design by inclusion, you design responsibly. The whole process falls in line because you design with people's consideration in mind. And hence, again, I want to reiterate what Daisy said, design by inclusion. If it is a course, maybe we'll go for training. We organize training on design by inclusion so that we will, follow that process. I and Daisy are available, courtesy of Women at the Table and IDRC. We will do that training if you want us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful kind of final answers and elaborations. And I guess for everyone joining us, a lot of the webinar series, this first one here, we had the pre-launch last week. They're very interconnected, so I really recommend watching them alongside one another. So I've just shared in the chat the recording from last week, and I really encourage you to watch it and share it across. What's really exciting is that Prof. Salifu and Prof. Nwakaire have recorded case studies that form part of the African Toolbox, which will be launched at the end of this month. So you can go back to Women at the Table's YouTube channel and watch the full case study to understand how they've kind of moved from stage 1 to the final stage and how they've implemented their projects, which are hosted by their respective research institutes. And these are projects that have been on the ground and that they've been working on for many, many years. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please read more about the African AI and Equality Toolbox on the website. And our second webinar, which will focus on stage 2, system requirements, is happening on October 6th. And it will definitely be another focus on other case studies, and we'll have other experts from the African continent coming to speak about their respective projects, so don't miss out. And thank you for your flexibility with the time change, and we're very sad as well that Prof. Winston wasn't able to join back because of the power cut. But thank you so much, Prof. Salifu and Prof. Nwakaire, for your time and your elaborations and your explanations. And I hope that this is a living resource for everyone to come back to and to understand how you've really brought communities together and how you've allowed people to kind of mention what was and kind of set the tone and set their priorities for the AI projects. You worked on both in Uganda and in Nigeria. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.